The Dutch Mannlicher rifle model 1895. It's another gun that came from the era when smokeless powder was first developed and invented. It was in 1884 that a French chemist developed smokeless powder, which changed military rifles and small arms with this development. By 1886, the French had a rifle, a magazine rifle, using the new powder, new bullets, and everything else. This touched off an arms race in the later part of the 1800s, where every nation, especially in Europe, was trying to equip their armies with comparable weapons, not to be behind or at a disadvantage militarily. So the Germans in 1888 developed a rifle, the commission rifle. And basically it was a gun that was put together and designed by a commission. And actually, in reality, I did an in-depth series on the gun. Just about every feature, from the handguards to the barrel to the bolt to the magazine system, was all taken and put together by a commission to design this gun. The one thing that they did do, and the Germans were like in a panic and were going at record pace to re-equip their army with new smokeless rifles, smokeless powder rifles. And they just took the Mannlicher magazine design and just incorporated it in their gun without getting permission from Steyr, to use it. So Steyr ended up suing Germany and won the rights to manufacture the model 1888 rifle. And what the model 1895, this Dutch rifle is Steyr also was a major arms supplier for most of the world. It was a world player. It made rifles for a lot of countries that didn't have the facilities to manufacture, so there were a lot of foreign contracts. And Steyr was, on a world-class level, a supplier. So the fact that it had the right to manufacture the model 1888 rifle, it started to modify it and test it out and try to market it to other countries. And this is where the Dutch come in. Now the Dutch, we just reviewed their 1871-1888 rifle. I have to use my cheat sheet here to keep all the dates straight. Well, in 1886, when the French come out with the smokeless gun, the Dutch themselves put together a commission, and they were going to try to see how to keep up to speed with the rest of the European nations. Well, they had no criteria, so they just took in all these different guns and were testing them and disqualifying them. There was no criteria for anything, like a magazine system, caliber, or whatever. They were kind of indecisive. So I guess after a few years, the commission just stopped. And what they did is they modified their single-shot bolt-action rifles, the 1871s. And like I said, they put the Vitali magazine system in them. And what they did is they modified their black powder guns kind of as a stopgap measure. Okay? And this is what their first attempt at replacing the gun came up with, is this gun here that we reviewed. So, they did that. Then they realized that developing a black powder gun, or a gun that fired black powder cartridges, was a waste of their time. So they started over again, and this time they had some criteria. They wanted a magazine cutoff. They wanted, at first, if you look at this gun, it does have the Mannlicher clip system. Well, at first they didn't like it. Then the stripper clip charger system, like on the Nagant and the Mauser, well, they didn't like that. And they tested different rifles and everything, and they were taking all kinds of different samples in from all over the world. I guess that's what this report says. So, and after changing their minds back and forth, Steyr had this, which is a modified version of the 1888 rifle. And there is another country that adopted a gun almost identical to this, the Romanians. There was a Romanian contract. And a lot of people say that this is a copy of the Romanian gun, but it's really not. Steyr was tweaking the design and doing different things. And the Romanians, it's even in the same caliber, adopted that gun like a year before and had a contract. The difference is the magazine obviously has like a reinforcement, which is a visible thing, and I think the sights may have been different on the Romanian gun. But it's not a copy. What it is these countries had a criteria, and Steyr submitted this rifle, which is basically a modified version of the 1888, and it fit their criteria and they liked it. So the Dutch were going back and forth. That's why it took all the way until 1895 before they came up with something that they would like and adopt. And it was this gun here. And the caliber also, it uses a 6.5 by 53 millimeter rimmed cartridge. And there was, I guess they tested all. They tested like an 8 millimeter and a 6.5, rimmed and rimless, and however they come about the decision, they ended up deciding the 6.5, which was adopted by both the Italians and the Japanese were using it at the time. Later on, the Swedes used it, and actually that cartridge was a lot better and stuck around to this day, where this 6.5 by 53 is pretty much obsolete. Same with the 6.5 Italian. There's only, the Carcano rifles were the only things ever calibered in it. And, you know, if you're shooting 6.5 Carcano, it's going to be in an Italian military rifle. Same with the 6.5 Japanese. The only guns chambered for that round were the rifles issued by Japanese Army. There are no civilian gun manufacturers ever chambered a sporting gun in that caliber. So the 6.5 was an established round and was used by several militaries. Of course, by World War II, they realized that that kind of wasn't a good idea. Everybody was, especially in Europe, went to an 8 millimeter or to 30 caliber. And actually, post-World War II, everyone was either using an 8 millimeter Mauser or a 30-06 because of the outcome of the war. But it's basically, we're going to take a closer look. The only difference with this, it has a different type of bolt head, which the Dutch wanted. And the sight, let's see if we can get a close-up. I'll give you a quick look at this, then we'll do a side-by-side comparison. You know, it's basically standard Mannlicher magazine system, 5 rounds, rimmed ammo. It goes in just like the rest. The reason this is got that strange shape and isn't flat like on the Mauser is because it's a rim case, so it's kind of reminiscent of the Austrian straight pull 95. And you know, you press this, clip comes out. Standard Mannlicher clip arrangement, magazine system. Now the rear sight is kind of, it's a modified sight from the Austrian 1888/90 straight pull, which was in their 8 by 50 millimeter. So this sight is kind of a modification of it. We'll get a closer look at it. Okay, now we're going to take a closer look of the guns side by side, the Mauser or the 88 commission rifle. Okay, I kind of got these set up to where we can take a look at it. On the bottom is the 1895. Okay, as you see, very similar, other than the sight. It has just a plain barrel and handguard and that. And all of that was little points that the Dutch were picking over. First they didn't like the Mannlicher system, then they changed their mind and did. They wanted a magazine cutoff, which is kind of impractical on this design. So that was a criteria. They rejected it. So there was a lot of hemming and hawing over what went on. Now, as you see, like on the 88, bolt system's the same, with the old, call it a split bridge. And actually, the rear end of the bolt is almost the same, two-position safety. Left is fire, all the way to the right is safe. They work the same way. And like I said, Mannlicher clip system. Here's a close-up of the magazine and a cartridge. This is from the 20s. As you see, it uses a long torpedo-style bullet. But same system. You can put it in either way. It doesn't go one way like a Steyr. It goes in either way, like on the 88. Okay, now the 88 has that metal handguard that goes the length, where this is just a more traditional, on the 95, a wooden handguard, the sight, barrel bands, and a thin barrel, you know. And a lot of these guns, the rifle is harder to find. You see more of the carbine version. There's like 5 different models, maybe more, because a lot of these rifles were cut down and turned into carbines in World War II or after World War II. So the rifles are a little bit more difficult to find. And this particular gun was an early one. This was made in 1899 by Steyr. We'll get these turned around, we can take a better look at it. There, as you can see, Steyr, 1899. Now, it wasn't until 1904 the Dutch somehow worked out an arrangement where they had a plant where they started manufacturing the rifles themselves. And now we'll take a closer look at this rear sight. Like I said, which is, if you look on a Steyr 1888 straight pull, sight's very similar. You know, works kind of like that. So it's a modified sight off another Steyr gun that they graduated made for this. Now the carbines, some of the carbines will have these handguards, and the handguards will go the whole length of the barrel, and that's basically your variation on the carbine, is handguards. One of them for bicycle troops or something has a wooden cover. It comes down on the side of the magazine, so when this is slung over your back, this metal don't rub on you or something, I guess, and things like that. The barrel band, you know, is stuff they designed. And the Bayonet Lug, take a look at that here. I don't have a bayonet, but if you notice, the Bayonet Lug is kind of, I guess, unique to the bayonet that goes on there. This is all these little fine details. It took them a few years to come up with what they exactly wanted in this gun. And Steyr kind of custom made it to their desires. Okay, now as we look at the rifle side by side with 88, if you notice the bolt release is the same as the 88 Commission. That's the same there. And like I said, the rear of it is more or less identical, you know, in design. It's a different size. And then the Dutch had a preference. They specified what diameter the ball on the end of the bolt was. And there is one thing that they didn't like. Hold on a second. Something about the bolt head design is different. This is a different type, the Schaunoer, I believe, style bolt head, where the 88 bolt head is more or less a wraparound style. They didn't like the bolt head and wanted it changed. We'll get these out and take a closer look at that. But as you can see, they operate the same. Now this is an original 88 that has been modified for stripper clips. So it's an older one. So as you see, basically this is a modification of the 88 is what it is. Alright, here we have the Commission 88 Commission 8mm bolt head. If you're familiar with this is the older open style. Some of them are fully round and that is recessed. This is the earlier version of the bolt head. And its ejector is that little tiny piece in there. And this is where I was mistaken. I just realized the bolt release has a little ridge, or we'll look at it, whatever you want to call it. It rides in this slot, and that is what ejects the case. When you pull the bolt all the way back and it hits it. The Dutch didn't like that, so they wanted a newer design bolt head. And basically it's flat, it's not recessed, your extractor is there, and that's what hooks onto the base of the case and pulls it out. Then the ejector system is kind of like that thing on the Beaumont. It rides probably in the receiver, then when it hits the bolt release thing, it's a straight flat thing. It just pushes this up, and you can see it move out like that. You got a case, we'll put it in there. There, you got your case in there. And then how it works is when it hits, it pushes off the... So that was a sticking point with the Dutch. They wanted this design for whatever reason. But other than that, the bolt looks similar. Alright, now we'll kind of take a look. I'll look inside there and show you how that difference is with the bolt stop. Okay, this is the bolt stop, and if you look down in the receiver, you'll see where it's just a radius and it's long and flat. And if we look at the 88 down in there, you'll see there's that little, where the bolt stop is, there's that little tab or hook, whatever you want to call it, that protrudes and rides in that groove, which activates the ejector. Where this one here is just a flat shoulder. So that's another difference in them. Well, that's my take on the gun. Try to do the best I can. Seems that my hand wasn't helping out too well, but kind of apologize, the video quality ain't there. But that's basically the long and short, the differences, the technical thing, and a little bit of the history of this particular gun. I will be doing videos on making the cases for this. The caliber's obsolete. So you can take 303 brass and make the 6.5 by 53 rimmed out of it. I'm working on that, and also we'll do a technical inspection. The groove diameter on these guns is a bit deeper, and you probably would get better accuracy using the bullet for the 6.5 Carcano other than the standard 6.5 diameter bullet. So we'll look into that also. So I'm going to be doing some work on this. These are neat old guns. They're kind of hard to find. I had a carbine once years ago and fired up some surplus ammo in it and really didn't get good results out of it. I'd like to hand load for it and do some work, but it's just another interesting piece of history here. So that's the Dutch Mannlicher model 1895.